Hello, everybody. Today is September 22nd, 2022, and this is another edition of the MSP Initiative Live. And yes, I am live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida from the Taylor Business Group Big Conference. That's what it's called. Actually, pretty nice attendance here. We're seeing a lot of people, who are usually in peer groups, but also people who aren't affiliated pop in, which is great. Nice to see people, connected. So, here's where we're at, right? The Taylor Business Group Big Conference. Book up market for next year. If you don't already, didn't have it in your calendar, it'll be 2023. But this is actually a pretty good event so far. We're just in the beginning of it now. And yeah, we're on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They've been here all week. And this is like the actual conference portion of their event. So lots of vendors that you know and love here, lots of MSPs that you know and love, lots of industry speakers that you know and love. I'll have some pop on as they're walking behind me. I'm on like kind of the booth trade show floor here in the Diplomat Hotel. If anyone doesn't remember the Diplomat, this is it's been quite a few events here over the last, decade. CompTIA and definitely the very last Autotask Community Live back in 2017. So that's where I remember it. But all that being said, yeah, great venue right on the beach. Weather's fantastic, so no complaints there. Do some general housekeeping, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So MSPinitiative.com is where you're going to see everything that we do here. This session, every other session will be available in podcast and what video formats going back to March of 2022 or 2020. I'm sorry. I'm erasing years from everybody's existence, and nobody wants to remember those middle years. We'll be announcing some giveaways between now and the end of the year. Stay tuned on those. Some of our sponsors at MSP Initiative. We have 3 community block parties we're planning this year. Washington, D.C. is already behind us. We actually rented the Nationals ballpark. Yes, the MLB stadium. It was great. Photos are online. And I think we have a little quick video preview coming, of like kind of the vibe of the event. Last night, right here in Fort Lauderdale at the dock across the street from where I'm at now, we did our MSP community boat party. That was a 5-story mega yacht on the water, and it was great. We have photos coming out from that, some videos coming out from that. I really appreciate Taylor Business Group and all of the vendors that help us put it together, because we know, it takes a little bit of effort from the community to put these things on, but when they end up really nice, people remember those things, and that's what we like to do. Our very last one is coming up here on November 9th, which is a Wednesday on International Drive at Icon Park, big Ferris wheel when you come into Orlando. We will be hosting a private concert with the All American Rejects. No joke, for real. We're bringing them into you, as well as this is going to be pretty crazy. We're going to have a lot of stuff and a lot of entertainment and a lot of things to do. And this is like kind of our big bash at the end of the year for the MSP IT community. So if you are in the area, happen to be coming to a conference or two in town, or just want to fly in to check out a private concert with the All American Rejects, come on down. We have room for you. So that's the last of our community block parties. Last thing I want to talk about before we get into the good stuff is Channel Strong Tour. We had 8 of these planned this year. We are down to the last 3. So we have 26th through the 30th, Denver, Tulsa, Topeka, St. Louis. Tony's team's gonna thank you for hosting us in St. Louis, by the way. These guys are great. We're gonna introduce Tony in a second. And then Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, Irvine, October 17th through the 20th. We'll close out the year following that kind of last bash in November 28th through December 2nd, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta. So we've been all over the country. You can see here, we love these, right? Because we literally come to you in your backyard, no trains, no planes, no boats. Just jump in your car or your scooter or your Uber and come on down. And we'd love to see you guys kind of mingle with the other people in your area. I promise it's a learning opportunity, guys. There's no secrets here. We're not like, handing the competition the keys. That's just not how these things go. So if you're okay having a conversation in the hallway or at the bar and just, striking, hey, what's working, what's not, what are you seeing? This is the type of stuff that you really get real intel. And I love those. So there it is. Those are all the announcements. Thanks for staying through those. It's a very busy time of year. And this is where everybody gets their airline miles coverage for the next year. So I got sick. So without further ado, Tony Morris, welcome, sir.
Hey, George, how are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. I'm trying to actually schedule my sleep this time of year, Tony. I know that sounds weird, but it's almost a must. It's almost a must to have. So for anyone that hasn't, run into you or maybe hasn't been paying attention to what we've been doing over the last couple of years, why don't you go ahead and do like a little intro about you and your company, and then we'll go talk into like some current events and we'll see what your opinion is on some of the things happening around IT land.
Sure. So my name is Tony Morris. I'm Vice President of Karpel Solution. I run the MSP, arguably, division of the organization. We provide managed security services to clients in the greater St. Louis area. We also have a vertical focus on senior living that we've gotten quite involved with over the last few years. The other division of our company is a software development company that has a piece of software, the only piece of software we really develop right now that is for criminal case management in cities and counties. We have over 33 states, over 550 city and counties across the United States with 15,000 end users on that software. That all gets supported, as well as our MSP clients, through our help desk here in the greater St. Louis area. I've been very fortunate to experience some pretty good growth over the last few years. We're just shy of 100 employees right now, and continuing to grow. So, which is one of our big challenges. That's a great topic to talk about, is that growth.
Well, that's one of the things, in the hallways here that has come up last night on the boat party, and just people today. Like yesterday, they announced a 0.75% increase in the interest rates. This is, I think, the fourth or fifth consecutive months where, the interest rates have been, going up and shortly not down. Usually when interest rates go up, Tony, people start seeing people lose jobs, right? And layoffs, and like the unemployment rate usually goes up. Like, this is historically, right, how that works. And I'm not an economist by any means, but that's just, the trends, right, of what happens. So with that being said, and I'm a couple different angles I want to pick your brain on. Do you find people that are either overqualified or expecting a price point that is outside of the range that you kind of budget for different positions in this time when the economy is kind of definitely in a recession? I don't think there's any other definition, right? We're in a recession, interest rates up, unemployment's starting to go up. Trying to find people like are getting cut from multiple, especially technology organizations, interestingly enough. So when you go to interview during this time, because we've had periods like this in the past, do you find people are just either, do you feel like they could be overqualified, or their expectations of what their salary range should be is just too high for comfort?
Yeah, I think a little bit. And I think we have maybe both ends of that going. So since we have our help desk, we do a lot of recruiting from the technical colleges and different organizations around. And we find that we bring on a lot of interns that work part-time for us as a way to groom them into the organization, which has worked out really well for us. But we're now going to some job fairs and looking for people that have coming right out of school with very little experience, intern experience, that are expecting $50,000-$60,000 right out the gate with like zero experience. So we are experiencing that. We have had a couple of folks that have applied for network engineer positions that are well and very unqualified for that, but they're expecting that they're going to be able to make that jump up to that pay grade. And we have, as you've said, seen some situations where somebody's applying for a tier 1 or tier 2 help desk position that has got letting go and is like, I can do this, I'll take this job. And we sit there and scratch our head and thinking, are you taking the job just to have a job right now? because I don't have that other job for you right now, right? So how long are you going to be here before you jump somewhere else? That's probably the biggest challenge or a big challenge. I wouldn't say the biggest, to categorize it that way, that we and maybe other organizations are having, is investing in someone for 6 to 9 months and then they jump because they want more money or whatever the case may be, right?
So I'm curious, like, that's a real thing. I've heard at least 2 people at this event who are like, yeah, I'm just biding my time. I'm going to be starting to sing on the side. And then, like, next year I'm going to kind of bounce out and do that. And I'm like, does your current employer know that? Like, do you have this conversation? Because I feel like if you don't ask it, you're just waiting for it to happen. So, like, how do you get ahead of that? Is it possible?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back a little bit to the culture thing, right? We all want to be dealing with people that are honest and upfront and truthful with us. I think that it seems to me that that's one of the most difficult things for any new growing company or even any mature company. We have clients that have told us, prospects that have told us, I absolutely hate my company. It is horrible right now. And we'll come in and do a network assessment, as many companies do, right? And show them, well, you're right. Here's things you really need to be concerned about. It's like, I got to make this change. I got to make this change. I'm going to get this thing signed for you. And we're talking with ownership level people, right? It's like, and then they go dark. And I realize different things come up and people have that, but you wonder, it's like, well, can't you just tell me or tell my sales guys that things are not happening, right? Or something else has become a priority and they suck, but I'm going to put up with the suck. That's okay. We can take that as an answer. Just, don't leave us in the dark. The other part of it is your employees, right? Especially these guys, you try to get the culture right. You interview, you can put them through personality tests. You can have them sign the document that says, I'm doing this, I'm not going to do this. But it's inevitable that over the years, we found 1 or 2 that are doing that on the side, right? It's like you realize that you honestly told us you were going to do this. So if I can't trust you with this, how can I trust you with something else, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a good way to get around it other than, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and we really try to practice here is to hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
We try to be very black and white about here's the expectation for 90 days, here's the expectation for 180 days, and we're doing checkpoints all along the way. So if someone's not working out early, it's better that we and they know that, right?
Yeah. It's funny, at DattoCon last week, which is still a big topic of discussion here in this event, Gary Vee, his motto is hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest. And I thought that was an interesting position. Problem is that to that point, you just don't know what you're getting, right? And I would think now is probably one of the harder times, even above what happened coming out of pandemic times, where people just are kind of not straightforward about the capabilities. And quite frankly, it's a guessing game. Continuity is such a hard thing to achieve, right? Especially in smaller companies. And I feel like that's the part that could really rip that rug right out from underneath of a company when there's just always a flux happening, and just throwing money at the problem doesn't even seem to be the answer either, to be honest. I feel like there needs to be just like any football team, right? I'm a big NFL fan here, Eagles fan.
Yeah.
Like you have to have that nucleus of players, right? That kind of build out to the people on the periphery. So especially in Tony, like you have a strong, security practice, and I know that hiring strong security focused and accredited people are even way harder than just the network engineer guys, right? I mean, it's like a whole different level of complexity, right? So,
Right.
yeah, it's an interesting world out there. And like for the better part of the last 20 years, anytime anyone's asked, hey, what are the top 2-3 things that you're having a problem with in your business? This topic seems to never leave the top 3.
No, and I don't suspect it will. I really don't. I mean, I think there's a younger generation that has different expectations than certainly my generation did. You know, I'm a bit of an oddball. I've had 3 different IT jobs in the last 40 years. With a manufacturer and then went to one company for several years and then been over here now for 8 years and managing this and growing this division. And you know, I see the turnover that goes on. We've certainly got some long timers here. We're very fortunate that we're doing well. We have a profit sharing plan, and you know, it's paid out very well for our teammates and stuck with us. But still, there's people that, you know, an opportunities here and they want to do that and broaden their resume and stuff along those lines. So I think that's always going to be an issue. And as you say, especially in the security field, I mean, when we got into the security practice, you know, we just added a person and we're talking to everybody about what we needed to do in security. And we're now at the point where, you know, we are next year breaking that out into its own division. And we'll have our network and engineering division, and we'll have our security division. And our security guys aren't going to just be guys who know how to do firewalls and things like that. They need to come in and be able to understand how to put in cybersecurity, you know, assessments for insurance. They need to do incident response plans. They need to help do business continuity, disaster recovery plans, and all those things that cyber insurance companies are looking for now as far as insurance. I mean, it was amazing to me. I told somebody in a group in a seminar what I did and why they need insurance, and talked about how the first document I ever did for one of our clients was a 1-page document on, you know, to fill out for their cybersecurity rider or their policy. Now it's like a 5 to 6 page document. And I was looking at somebody else's blog post or whatever the case may be and saw almost verbatim those exact same words. So, you know, one thing that it's a growth area for us. It's a hard growth area because of taking someone's mentality of black and white, fixed, not fixed, and start putting it into gray areas of, do you do this? Yes, I do this. How do I answer this question? It's like, well, I don't know. Not everybody can make that jump, right? It is a special, unique person that can do that.
No, 100%. And quite frankly, like the expertise of that person also needs to be, you know, defendable, right? I think that's the proper word, right? Defendable. I mean, you know, Matt Lee always says all the time, hey, your security is only as good as you can actually defend the steps that you took. Because at some point, even if you had all the boxes checked, the bad guy could still be pretty clever, right? And cause problem, right? I mean, that's
absolutely.
There's no guarantee, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's the scary part.
The scariest thing to me is an owner that says, yeah, you can do all this for everybody in my company, but you can't do it for me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to put it, not going to put MFA on my email. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But, you know, don't worry, nothing will happen. And it's kind of like, we actually have a waiver now that's fine. That's what you want to do, but you're going to sign this waiver that says, if it does happen to you, we're not responsible, right? And all the time we have to put in to fix it or whatever the case may be, that's billable to you. And inevitably, once we put that waiver out there, one of two things happens. It's like, well, okay, you can do it to me. You know, I'll put up with it, or maybe we're not a good fit anymore. You know, and we've had a couple of those conversations, but small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, and even co-managed businesses now, which is now something we've gotten into. We're new at that, but not everyone is a good fit for you. And you have to make sure that if you're going to take the risk of working with them, because they expect you to be doing this. They don't want to be dealing with 2 different companies. They want one.
The expectation is like that word is a killer, right? Because usually when a dispute arises, that's the thing that tilts. Well, I believed, I expected you to be doing A, B, and C. And you're like, well, hey, our agreement says we're doing these things. Did you read it? Like, we had conversations with you. Do you recall? And then all of a sudden, you know, they're like, well, we'll just go to court. And like, that's when things get really expensive and time consuming and quite frankly, aggravating.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I ran into a couple people who mentioned exactly what you're saying, right? The CEO or business owner is like the worst, like kryptonite to this whole cybersecurity plan, because they're the people that are ultimately the target, right? They're the check signers, they're the authorizers, the approvers, and everybody else. It's like the chain and the weakest link analogy, right? Like they're just holding up the whole thing. So that's come up a couple conversations. I got another interesting one that I guess it's just another angle. My Uber driver on the way to this event was like, "Oh yeah, I got scammed." That she was mentioning there was a cybersecurity convention in town prior to this one, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." She's like, "Oh yeah, I got scammed cybersecurity." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I applied for a job and like posted. Well, I posted my resume on like the job boards. Somebody reached out and said, 'Hey, we think you're a perfect candidate.' They sent over stuff, and then effectively like somehow said, 'Hey, well, you have to go get your equipment. We'll reimburse you.' They had her fill out paperwork so that they would reimburse the funds to her, and then they ended up draining her bank account."
Oh,
By the
And I
way,
was just,
George, friends don't let friends take Uber.
okay,
told-
I know.
I've
Hey,
told you how
listen,
to get from the
they
airport to
did they
different locations.
didn't have a helicopter pad, Keith. I promise.
I saw your yacht though.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I thought you would have loved that. There was a cigar area too. That's right.
Oh,
Might as well
wow.
have put a plaque out just for the Keith Nelson cigar area. Keith, I don't know if you've ever, and calls open, guys. You guys can always jump in. But Keith, yeah, literally this person's just an individual, right? Got scammed thinking that she got this job. She needed to go, she was going to get reimbursed. They cleared out her bank account, and it took her quite an effort to try and like work with the bank and the authorities to try and get her money back, because she has to pay her bills. Like, you would think that the individual isn't the person that's the lowest common denominator, but it seems like it's effective because they got her money.
Well, not only that, you go, and this is not a nice thing to say, but you're going like, she sounds like she was uniquely unqualified to be in the cybersecurity business.
I think so.
Because that's such a rudimentary scam that, but let's leave that alone because, she's trying to better herself and there's a lot of good things to say about that. Part of your conversation earlier was regarding compensation and retaining employees.
Mhm.
Years ago at AA Stanford in the key management studies, they said there's a real disparity. Employers look at compensation and put it in the top 5 of the ways to retain employees. Employees put it in the bottom 7 or 8 on the list. So I think it's like you're selling something people aren't buying. And so I look at the same when we commoditize the MSP business. I've said this before. Don't sell commodities. Don't bring out the blue light and be Kmart. Because if the basis of your employer-employee relationship is I stole you for more money, why are you surprised when someone else steals him for more money? You've kind of created that environment. So there's a lot of things to look at, and each organization is different depending on the size and the amount of employees. Employees generally do not want departmentalization. And you'll find that numerous times over and over again. They don't want silos. They are in the field for a mission, and they don't like hearing your job ends here. Now, I understand from a business owner perspective where you have to take the best resources and apply them to the best job, but they're looking to break down barriers and to really have the opportunity to help end clients in our business. So we have to make sure that when we create silos, which are understandable, that we allow that first level help desk person to see a conclusion and learn from that conclusion, because their mission is to help the guy on the phone, and to hand it off to the black hole. And especially when you talk about some of the big vendors we deal with, it goes into a black hole, into a mysterious black room where it's almost like a restart of, we've all had this, right? It's a restart of my problem. Explain to me again why you're calling. Oh, you're the 5th person I've explained my problem to.
right.
Yeah.
And so I think I think that sometimes as employers, let's say, let's look at the mission and the culture and the opportunity and the ability to let them accomplish something. Because at the end of the day, people don't want to look at the day and say, I just wasted oxygen. There was no other reason for me to be on Earth today. They'd like to go home with some accomplishment. And let's make sure we're giving them that. That's just kind of my.
I don't disagree. I think that there's a red flag thing that happens, right? Like, just like Tony said, hey, 90, 180 days, like if it's already breaking down early, we should just close the door and not continue. There was a conversation I had yesterday with an MSP here at Taylor Business Group, Big, and he said we had a junior guy and he fell for the SMS, the CEO's messaging you to go out, get gift card scam. And like immediately the guy's like, yeah, I shut off all his accounts. I disabled all his users access. And I went to the management and just said, hey, you can keep this guy employed, but I cut off his access. I can't trust him to make good decisions. Yeah. So I'm like, there's two edges of the sword there, Keith, right? On your side, everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody wants to like be a part of something. And on the other side, it's, are you diligent enough? Are you organized enough? Do you take direction enough? Right? Because there's different ways people learn, but there needs to be some structure to that. No?
Yeah, there needs to be some structure, but as we go to one other point was we talk about 2FA, which you hear all the time. A CFO says, I don't want 2FA. You're going, don't sell 2FA. Sell single sign-on and enhanced login experience. Sell to the business process. 2FA is boring, right? I just had a discussion with an engineering firm and I told the guy, I said, let me explain something to you. I know this stuff, but I don't know how to build a dam like you do. Understand and mutually respect. So what we sold that guy was, here's a landing page that you log in once, and I've actually streamlined your daily business flow. All your applications are on that single sign-on page. As many of them as possible are exchanging the single sign-on token. So instead of the overhead of the single sign-on, which is where they think, I don't have time to deal with this, you're going, I've actually taken one login and maybe extended the time, but streamlined 5. And I'm allowing you to move from application to application. Don't sell a product, sell a business process. So we've enhanced their business process securely through technology.
We're going to have to do a workshop one day with Keith Nelson.
No, no one wants to hear my babble, but
we want but what you're saying is true. It's right. And I think the problem with, I hate to say salespeople, because I would be doing them injustice by categorizing everybody that way. But when you're talking to somebody for the first time to evaluate if there's a relationship worth building, whoever that person is from your organization, sometimes that's owner led, sometimes you have somebody dedicated to that role. I think that there's a challenge because some of the information, Keith, that you need in that beginning conversation, you almost need them to let their guard down enough to get the real information rather than whatever little piece of information they're trying to give you versus the truth, And I don't know if there's a trick to that or a science or a game, but without knowing all of the real data, it's hard to deliver them the actual solution. Does that make sense?
It's funny you bring that up. I was on a webinar and one of the masters of our universe was talking about his great PowerPoint and how he puts this great presentation in. And he said to me, besides, what car do you drive? He said, why don't you share your presentation? And I sent him a picture of my ear. I said, I don't go into a customer to talk about me. Obviously, they've invited me in, so there's something about me or my company they're already intrigued by. I go to let them tell me about them. Mm-hmm. Because people like talking about themselves. And then you start going, and then you walk out and they go, and the first impression is, you care about my business, you care about what I'm doing, you are the guy that's going to enhance my workflows. When I went into Boeing, I didn't talk about my background and what I did in the back. I let them explain lean manufacturing to me, even though I knew it. I let them explain it to me and then wrote on its diagram very simply. I go, so this is what you want to automate. And he goes, yeah. He goes, everyone else was selling us a package. I said, no, I'm going to do what you want. So I think that's one of the things we need to learn is, and we love to do it. We go to conventions, as you know, and we all talk about our technical prowess, what geniuses we are, what we've hacked, what cybersecurity pros we are. And you're going like, that's great, but outside of this room, no one cares.
Right.
No one cares.
I still find it interesting, Keith, that the marketing terms that we've absorbed from the sandbox, right? Managed services and service delivery and all that, like, these aren't the terms that people use on the streets, right? Like the people who go out and look for a provider, a vendor, an answer to their technology problems, they are using real world terms and things rather than what we've kind of packaged together as acronyms, right? So to your point, I think that, you know, whoever can get into an actual conversation, you know, with the person on the other side of the desk and get to the real information, I mean, they're the people that are going to be successful in like the relationship, growing the business, and ultimately delivering whatever it is that needs to be delivered. I feel like security is such a storm right now, right? That it's coming up in like every other conversation, if not every. You know, Tony's has a whole division he's about to break out that does just that. Actually have, not at their table, but I got Tech Rug back here. I was talking to the guy a little bit about some of the cybersecurity insurance stuff a little bit today. But I mean, they're thinking, you know, over the next 24 months, that a lot of the companies out there won't even be able to obtain coverage.
I agree. I talked to someone else in the business, Larry,
Mhm.
and I said, at some point, we're going to make it so complex and so expensive that people aren't going to insure. You know, it's the same thing, you know, with the marijuana industry. They tax it so much, they make it so hard, they make it so regulated that you're going like, you're promoting back to the streets. And I'm afraid we're going in that direction where a business owner says, you know, the average guy's a good guy. I don't like this MSP conflict with their customer. The average customer is a good guy. He runs a business. He does something we don't know how to do. He's just a guy trying to make a living. And he's focusing on being a chiropractor or a dentist or a engineering firm. And so it's, you know, I understand their frustration. They're going, let me do my core competency. And I always, and I've said this to you before, George, I'm a broken record, but old people are allowed to repeat themselves.
You're gonna be with us for a long time. Don't tell us otherwise there, Keith.
Yeah. The same stuff you're yanking out, if you've been in the business over 5 years, the same firewall you're replacing, the same antivirus that needs new EDR, MDR is probably the stuff you sold it. Remember, and you go like, everyone in the room, raise your hand if you used to sell Symantec. Would you sell it today? Just remember that in the back of your mind, right? That was what we did back then. So your client sitting there going like, I don't understand. 10 years ago, you told me and said, this is the roadmap to being secure. And it was $100 a month per works, whatever it was, right? And now you're telling me that number's 700. And why doesn't this work anymore? And by the way, I don't have a lot of time to learn it because I also have to run my business. So I get it. I mean, we have to be sympathetic to that.
So I'm curious, Tony, that's a great one, right? You're like a lot of MSPs average, you know, I love the 3-year deal, right? Put that aside. A lot of MSPs are doing business with people 8 years, 10 years, et cetera, right? Long relationships, which is great, by the way. I love that.
Yep.
When the technology turns over, how do you approach that, right? Because Keith's like, well, then customer saying, well, you're the one that put this stuff in here. Now you're telling me we got to rip it out and put something completely different in here, different cost, different story. Like, which one is it, right? Like, how do you, I think I know what you're going to say, but how does that conversation go for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's like when we decided that we needed EDR on all of our clients' devices, we kind of eased into it. The first thing we did is started in our newsletter publishing a lot of articles on security and what's going on and what you do and what you don't. But then we got to the point with new agreements, it was just included. And we went back to our existing clients and told them, you know, the landscape has changed. We need different tools. And when we get into that tough conversation, I actually used an analogy. And Keith, I don't know you, but I suspect that you're probably either in my age range or just a little bit younger, but not much. But when I first started driving, you know, I had a seatbelt, I had a rear view mirror, and I had a left side view mirror. I don't know that I had a passenger mirror back then. And that was considered a safe and secure car. In my wife's car now, not mine, but in my wife's car, she's got mirrors all over the place. She's got airbags all around her. She's got a car that will step on the brake if somebody slams on the brake in front of her, will turn the wheel in. If someone's behind her and she's backing up, it'll put the brake on, it'll beep and do all that sort of thing. That's considered a secure car today. Well, that level of security comes with a cost. And when we look at what's happening in the cyber bad guys world, then just antivirus and that firewall and that semantic solution isn't enough anymore. Here's the tools to keep you safe. And you want me to keep you safe. So I'm just telling you, these are the tools that I need, and let's work through this and how we get there. And it seems to be a pretty easy conversation when you can relate a story to them that could be relatable to several of them. Well, yeah, well, my car does this, and my last car that I bought was this, and this one's this. And okay, well, now I can understand why your rates are going to go up 10% or whatever the case may be, right?
That's a great analogy. We know a lot of people are car people, including Keith. But to that point, right? Like, you don't, every time you go out and buy a car, right? All these safety and security features, right? Now self-driving somewhere in the future, Night Rider edition. But like, you're right, 100% right. These are the features that are now being propped up as this is why you want to buy this car, other than it looks nice or has the third row or is maybe a sports car like Keith likes to drive. That's a great analogy. I love that.
It's the standard. You wouldn't, I can't imagine, I don't have it in my car. I have a 2015 car. My wife had a 2014 that we just got a 2021. Very fortunate to find one in 2021, but I can't imagine any rental car I get now either has, I'm an Android guy, so it's got Android Auto on it, or it's got the iPhone version of that on it. I can't imagine driving or renting a car that doesn't have that now, where I can just put everything up on the screen while I'm driving. It's just the standard. Everybody wants that, right? So there's a cost to that.
Yeah,
I agree.
These people and their fancy toys.
Oh, like you have plenty of room to talk there, my friend.
No, I think that's important. The problem that we deal with in some stuff that's covered through government contract, and even within the government, they say do these security enhancements, but they say your budget's tied. It's 18 to 24 months to get budget approvals. And so you're going, it's a quandary. It's a tough market. And so even on a privately held business, you're going, it's not always the cost, it's the cost of unallocated funds. And that's one of our challenges, right? You're trying to take out a crystal ball and tell the guy says reasonably, I want a 1-year plan, I want a 3-year plan, I want a 5-year plan. And we're going like, we don't know what our cyber enemies are going to come up with next week. Right? Whoever thought that, we'd have SIM and SOX besides just regular Knox 5 years ago, right? It used to be, you could take syslog, prune your firewall logs, review them once a week, and you were doing pretty good, better than many providers. And now you're going, this is all real time. And it takes bodies and it doesn't scale down very well, right? There's a scale to it. And so for smaller companies that are looking to meet those requirements, you're going like, it would just be unreasonably expensive to do it in-house, and they have to have a flexible and contingent budget, which is it's just a different thing in the CFO suite. right?
Yeah, I know we still always get the argument, right? That, you know, the startup, right? The 1, 2, 3 man, small business, 5 man, 10 man small business, maybe they just can't afford it from get-go, right? I would think just like everything else over time, right? The big screen TV got expensive in the beginning, and then they came out with LED and LCD and all these other technologies. And then over time, now you can walk in any Walmart, Best Buy, Target, and get a pretty big TV for a couple $100. I would assume over time, there's going to be something to help the little guy that's a little bit more cost effective. But to some degree, I'm just concerned about, like right now, the business grade solutions that we're all offering, or we're all talking to customers, about, there's some credentials behind it, right? You have some faith that the people analyzing all of the data can actually do something with it. I would hate for somebody like a LifeLock style, commercial consumer option for small business, where they're like, oh, this is everything you need. Semantic, by the way, not for nothing. They call it Norton. And then like, they're like, oh, we're good. That's the only thing I fear, right? That people are going to try and water this down and try and deliver it to the end customer at such a low rate that they think that they're covered, when it's the, 1 out of 10 option, right?
I think the companies that choose to go with that, and this goes back to where, I think any business that's going to continue to grow and scale, you have to say no to some clients, right? If that's the mentality of the client, we part of our assessment process, and I'm sure it is with many MSPs, is to look at what equipment's in place and ask them, okay, so you realize that this equipment is now 4 years old, and why we would cover it. If you're going to keep this equipment, it's going to continue to break. It's going to cost me more time, and your people, it's still going to take me time to fix it. So if you're looking for the cheapest deal and you're never going to be upgrading equipment, we're probably not a good fit for you, because we're trying to offer a quality service at a fair price. We're not the most expensive. We're certainly not the least expensive, but we think we want this to be a win for both of us. So that's part of the requirement for us, is minimal requirements on the equipment. That's one of the reasons that I just had a conversation with somebody looking at one of our agreements, and we just upgraded it to, we talk out all the technical jargon as far as it needs to be this, this, and this, and this. And we just changed our agreement to say, hey, it's got to be a Microsoft supported software. So if they're not supporting Windows 7 anymore, then we're not doing Windows 7, right? If when Windows 10 goes away, we're not doing Windows 10. It can't, right? So it's a little harder with Apple, since they don't have that clearly defining thing, but we came up with some verbiage that seems to work for Apple too. But Apple's really a very small percentage of what we do. So,
well, I mean, if you follow the cell phone companies out there, if you're on a device more than 2 years old, you're already in trouble, right? But yeah, I'm sure that's planned a little bit more.
But I still think you got to find those clients that, to build your business, is you have to say no to some clients. And those clients that start coming at you with well, I don't need this part, but I want this part and this part. It's like, whoa, stop. You're a one-off. I don't do one-offs. I mean, I'm growing my business, and every one-off slows me down. So it's not as hard conversation as I would with us girls here on this podcast, but it's like, is that the way you handle your clients? And if you can't get past that conversation to where, well, I just don't think we're going to use your help desk that much. It's like, well, great. Here's a couple other companies you might call and see how that works out for you, and move on.
Yeah. I mean, I think as anything goes, right? I think the problem is, nobody wants to say no to revenue, right? But nobody, the problem is thinking ahead of time to figure out if you're signing what should be a profitable account for you or not. If you're at break even or you're losing money, you're effectively working for free, or like you're not even a for-profit company anymore. You're a nonprofit, right? So I think that's part of the problem. And I know Paul Dipple, is retiring, and all these guys out there with all these benchmarking tools, and they just say that like the bottom 30% of all MSPs out there are actually not making money. You know what I mean? They're literally just fronting money for the packages of software that they're and services behind them, and those vendors are still making money behind them, but the actual person who's dealing with the end user is like not even making money at the end of the year.
Yeah, I've seen those studies as well. We used to, my previous company was, participated in Paul's company before they were with ConnectWise, but I still see that, so.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Going back to your point there, I think you and Keith, Tony, are talking about teaching your customers planned obsolescence.
I agree.
You know, that tomorrow could be that planned obsolescence, not next year. It used to be like a 3 or 5 year technology cycle. Now those cycles have just moved up and the gap is closed where it could be next month what we put in. So, we're your MSP, we've got it, but there's going to be, like you said, that cost that goes with that protection. So
Yeah,
planned obsolescence.
we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in where we own the equipment. We call it rented. People call it chartered, but it's hardware as a service, right? So we actually don't own it. We use a third-party company that does that, but we've got 5 to 6% of our clients that they want to rotate it out. They've just chosen to make it an OpEx. So they know that I've got this in my budget. I'm going to spend it. And 3 years from now, I'm still going to be spending it. I'm never going to write it off or whatever. It's just an OpEx for me. And that makes it easy because they don't necessarily have to pay the whole thing off, right? If that happens, they can make that move quicker. And I suspect that may or may not grow more over the next few years.
Yeah, it's been around for a while, but I think it's, like if you can actually bring all of your cost bases down to a budgetable, reoccurring set number, I would think the financial people out there would go for that more than, hey, let's roll the dice and see if we're lucky this year. Did we spend more than we thought that we were? Did we not? I mean, nobody likes that variable, right? I think that's one of the reasons why there's been a slower adoption, as crazy as this sounds, right? A slower adoption to adopt the variable cloud services out there like Azure, AWS, right? You're like, well, what's my bill? Well, this month it was $2,000, but last month it was $1,200. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what did I do? Why is this funny? Why is this different? So I think people would rather understand what they're buying and know what their price point is. I think that's the reality to that. And I will remind everyone, but way back when we had Tyler on from North Security, he said that the CEO of Amazon Web Services says that only 5% or less of all IT spending globally annually is in cloud right now. Only 5. I was like, how does that number true? He quoted it. I found the article. I'll go back and pull it for you. Only 5%. There's a long uphill, situation there that's going to be happening over decades, I think.
Yeah, one of the challenges you have when you're trying to plan for functional obsolescence and covered equipment, and we generally try and cover that too. We don't cover anything that doesn't have an underlying warranty. Customers seem to understand that. You go, who do you want on the hook? This little Keith Nelson guy or Dell? So I mean that's kind of an easy sell, but you start running into proprietary systems and you have a challenge. CNC machines come to mind.
Yep.
A lot of things in healthcare, you're going like, boy, their mandatory use software doesn't allow for you to move off Windows 7 or Windows 10.
Right.
And that becomes a real challenge. And by the way, it's a challenge I don't have a complete answer to, because you kind of have to flex and work around. If someone ever tells me how to properly lock down a CNC machine that's serving multiple machines in an aerospace shop that conforms with CMMC, I'd be happy to give them an award. It's almost impossible. And you're going, and these are things you're going like, I'd be concerned about. So there is that problem with functional obsolescence. You're going like, some of the, the stuff that's not COTS is harder to regulate.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll have a whole nother conversation about where regulation goes. That's for sure. But with all that being said, I wanted to take this last few minutes. So Tony's company has graciously helped us over the last 3 years. We bring the Channel Strong Tour Bus through St. Louis at Karpel Solutions. So if you're in the St. Louis area, I know, come out, right? Go on the website, throw your name in there. We'd love to see you. We've always had great weather there, by the way. It's been lucky. I'm knock on wood now. But we really appreciate you and your team, Tony, for making that happen, right? And like, I would really wish we actually spent a little bit more time checking St. Louis area out, because I feel like we're always in and out, and like looks like a pretty cool city.
You guys keep a pretty tight schedule. You don't allow yourself too much time in any city on those tours. I don't envy you guys.
Yeah, the tour bus driver, man, he doesn't drive. He's not going to drive 100 miles an hour like Keith Nelson. He's going to take the speed limit. So, but we appreciate you guys for hosting us, guys. For anyone that's hosted a Channel Strong tour, we understand we're taking time out of your day and building management and all that other stuff that goes along with it. And it's, a little bit of a painful process, but I really think that it's a good outcome, right? Because this is the type of conversation that happens in the parking lot. I know it sounds crazy, but like, it's the same stuff you would try and learn here at an event like this, right? You want to find out what's working. Tony's figured out some stuff. He's grown. He started with 0 security practice. Now he's breaking off a separate division, right? Keith Nelson, he has a different way of doing things. He likes that consultative, kind of angle, and he likes to customize things for the customer. Everybody has a different way. Darren will tell you, don't buy Dell, buy Carbon Systems, because he thinks that's a better option.
Well, I don't want to say, I'm not saying don't buy Dell. I'm saying that there's another option that's good, and it's working pretty well. Not perfect, I want to say that. I'm going to work with them on some stuff, but it's pretty good. It's pretty damn good. Yes. It's nice to have another option where you can get stuff quickly and reliably. That is refreshing. So
pretty damn good. This rate's high on my chart. I'm just gonna put that out there. But hey, this is where we all learn, guys. And I think there's, it's a strong community, right? We just have to find ways to interact and like get people out of their office and, into the game. And I think that good stuff comes from it. I hope, we see all of you or some of you on, between now and the end of the year. There's just so many things going on. And if nothing other, if you can't meet us at Tony's place in St. Louis next Friday, November 9th, Wednesday night, we're bringing in the All-American Rejects for a private concert for the MSP community. I can't stress that enough. I'm so excited for that one. So if you're going to be in Orlando that week for a bunch of stuff, and we all know what it is, come on down. We really would love to see you. Maybe Tony will come out. You like pop music there, Tony? I don't know. Might not be your jam.
You know what? I'm not familiar with that group, but I do have 3 guys that are going to be in the Orlando area that week. So I've already forwarded that information to them. I'm coming back from a foreign trip 2 days before that, so it's just not going to work out for me.
All good. We'll make sure you get the love and you see what you guys are up to. We're gonna end.
I think
short
I'll
today.
be down there.
Okay, Keith, I'll have your cigar ready for you again, buddy.
Always.
We're getting a little bit short today, guys, because I actually gotta go do a breakout session with a couple people. But please come back Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Hopefully we'll see you out on the road. Tony, we'll see you next week. Can't wait to see you again. And for everyone else, this session was recorded. We'll have it up on mspinitiative.com. Catch you guys later.
Thanks.
Thanks, George.
Bye.